some calls for him to take over as King George. Now he sat in silence, probably just as aware as his colleagues in the room that he was more likely than anyone in the 13 former colonies to first occupy any proposed executive position. Edmund Randolph of Virginia finally voiced the fears of pure Republicans and much of the young nation, objecting to one-man rule with the claim that it inherently contained the fetus of monarchy. The next day, Franklin similarly named the danger the delegates now flirted with. There is scarce a king in 100 who would not, if he could, follow the example of Pharaoh, get first all the people's money, then all their lands, and then make them and their children servants forever. It will be said that we don't propose to establish kings. I know it, but there is a natural inclination in mankind to kingly government. I am apprehensive, therefore, perhaps too apprehensive, that the government of these states may in future times end in a monarchy. The need for a strong executive clearly remained controversial, even at the Constitutional Convention, because many Americans then simply had no way to imagine how vesting national power in one person could end well. Few positive role models existed. Benjamin Franklin, the most worldly of the delegates assembled in Philadelphia, on June 4th reminded his colleagues of the recent history of the United Netherlands. There, as he summarized it, the popular stadtholder had devolved into a hereditary position and seemed bound to become just another king. The executive will be always increasing here as elsewhere, he lamented, till it ends in a monarchy. Virtually everywhere these American wise men looked, they saw an unacceptable absence of liberty, an unacceptable abuse of executive power, or, more often, both. The delegates fretted about the apparently universal tendency for leaders to amass power at the expense of the legislature and the people, and consequently stay in charge too long. South Carolina's Pierce Butler, for example, noted that in all countries, the executive power is in a constant state of increase. Virginia's George Mason opposed the single executive concept, both during the Constitutional Convention and well afterward, as a leading anti-federalist during the ratification debates, fearing an oppression worse than that which the colonies had thrown off. "We are not, indeed, constituting a British government," he said, "but a more dangerous monarchy, an elective one." Eventually, of course, the delegates found their answer, now enshrined in the Constitution of the United States, the President of the United States. This single person would hold impressive powers, faithfully executing the laws, pardoning criminals, nominating judges, making treaties, and leading the armed forces as commander-in-chief. The best method of selecting this federal CEO prompted much debate. Navigating between the rocks of popular will demagoguery, which they worried could result from direct election by the people, and puppet presidency impotence, which they worried could result from election by the legislature, they devised a cumbersome electoral college system. By the founders' logic, the people would choose their leader, but only indirectly. Candidates for this powerful office would face no qualification tests beyond birth as a natural-born citizen, residency in the United States for 14 years, and an age of at least 35 years. We take for granted that voters can kick the incumbent out and choose someone else as their leader. It's the simplest and cleanest way to get rid of a president, and it has happened to 10 of the first 45 presidents. But it almost wasn't so. Delegates to the Constitutional Convention debated both the length of the president's term and whether he would face re-election at all. Pennsylvania's Gouverneur Morris said if the people were to elect the chief executive, they would never fail to prefer a man of distinguished character and of continental reputation. But Morris recognized that good men sometimes break bad. So he spoke sharply against language that would keep the chief executive in office.